All right, a very good morning. Welcome to Morning Cafe. It is the 4th of March, 2024. How hot is the coffee where you are? My name is Freddy Ndimuli.
My name is Julius Stanley Nyurungita. Karibu sana for marvelous Monday morning and to just kickstart your week all the way until the week continues. March seems to be a very long one, by the way.
It's going to be long, especially for Manchester United fans, of course. Jana nasikia kuenda vile mulipanga. For the first time, I was even supporting Manchester United.
For real?
Oh, anyway. It's okay.
Well, anyway, we continue. You guys have a game, I think, is it today or?
Tuko sawa.
Yes.
Tuko sawa.
Let's take a look at the headlines.
Quick look at the headlines. On the Daily Nation, senators move to corner governors. That's a big headline.
On the Standard, dead economists will be telling you which economists these are.
On the Star, tough times for school heads and proposed laws.
Meanwhile, kwa gazeti la Taifa leo, bonge la muungano, kuna sura tatu pale tuko nakwambia ni kina nani hao.
And on the People Daily, long wait for justice for families. Those are the papers today.
All right, from the papers to do start off with the traffic. Just take a look at how the roads are looking like. Some yellow patches right now. There's some red patches. Those, don't worry, some of them the bus stations. This is just after the Muthaiga Square, and there's quite that the red patch. Seems as if traffic is building up right now. So in case you're just waking up, try and hit the road as early as right now. These are getting into CBD, as you can see some yellow patches, but well, evidently the roads are looking clear in most parts of it. Let's see how the weather is looking like right now. So this is Nairobi. They say it feels like 18 degrees Celsius, and it is 80 degrees Celsius. Promises to get as hot as 28 degrees Celsius into as of around 3 p.m. there, starting the Monday as hot as possible. Those are the weather and traffic updates for you right now. Let's get into the diary just to see what to expect as of today. Quite a number of it. First off, by the way, Fred, today is World Engineers Day. Yes, on our diary. Today is World Engineers Day, so today marks the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development, a day to celebrate engineers and their crucial role in shaping our modern world as well. So yesterday was World Wildlife Day, which will be marked today by the Kenya Wildlife Service and at Kimada Town in Kajeru Town. So the event is themed Connecting the Earth and the Planet Using Technology. Meanwhile, do expect the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, that is KUCO, strike to organize a mass protest today. So according to the union, the Ministry of Health has failed to pronounce the fate of 8,500 universal health coverage workers during the COVID-19 period. That is just about a few of what to expect. Today we'll be also briefing you at the very tail end, and also as we continue in the show, just what to expect in our subsequent bulletins today. Also, in today in history, we take you back all the way to 2013 on the 4th of March, where millions of Kenyans turned out to cast their ballots for the first time since the promulgation of the new constitution of the 2010, the 27th of August 2010. I know well, as Fred always says, I was younger then, but he experienced it real hand. Yes, and that is today in history for you. Tuingie kwenye magazetini.
Right, let's start off with the Standard. Dead economies. That's a big headline on the Standard this morning. And they say that in every county there are tales of industries that not only thrived but served as lifelines for Kenyans. However, many of these have over the years collapsed, and it appears that no single administration has figured out how to attract new major investors while retaining the old players. The country is turning out to be a graveyard for industries. This is a special report given extensive coverage on pages 2 and 3. They talk about companies like sugar companies, other companies that are across the country that used to be there but are no longer being used. So yes, that's a special report on the Standard today. Still on the front page of the Standard, other stories given prominence. We are watching you, Gachagua allies tell Ruto. Interesting turn of events. Yeah, they say that the leaders assured Gachagua of their political allegiance, while others vowed to deal with any leader who may disrespect Gachagua on account of Raila's new relations with the government. Another very interesting story here. It's also a special report on pages 10 and 11. Day Kibaki sanctioned raid on the Standard. Now, this is a narrative by a senior police officer saying how he was called to meeting in State House, chaired by then President, to discuss how they were going to stop the Standard from publishing stories they felt were doing harm to the government's image. More highlights on the top strip. 9 bills to anchor National Dialogue report, and this is one of the big discussions. There's always this debate between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza MPs on whether or not they should actually have public participation again, given the fact that it was actually a negotiated agreement. Elsewhere, hundreds escaped from Haiti prison. Now, this is another big debate. 4,000 inmates escaped from prison yesterday after some of the gangs broke into this prison in the capital, Port-au-Prince. Elsewhere in business, shilling continues good form, and in sports, Kipruto leads clean sweep in Tokyo, and that's our cue to turn the page, the paper. The back page, Olympic warning shots fired as Kipruto leads podium sweep in Tokyo. Yes, it was Benson Kipruto, Timothy Kiplagat, Vincent Kipkemoy-Ngetich, and then followed by the Ethiopians, Haile Mariam Kiros, Segai Getachew. And then again, another Kenya, Bethwel Kibet, with Eliud Kipchoge coming later at number 10. And that's the Standard this morning.
Right, let's cross over to the Daily Nation. And matters devolution, making big news on this paper. Senators move to corner governors, so they say matters accountability, and senators and governors are headed for major clash over a new proposal by the lawmakers to have county chiefs appear before the Senate plenary to answer questions about their counties. And whereas some county bosses have welcomed the move, others see no reason to it, while MCAs have expressed their opposition. So let me give you more context on this story. So at a glance, the changes that you'll find on page 7 say, so the new standing order will have 4 parts, with 59 Cap A providing for the process by which a governor responds or provides information, while 59 Cap B will provide for the content of the information sought, which is not related to matters before the select committees on finance and public accounts. So Part C will provide for responses to information requested by senators, while 59D will provide for action to be taken in the event of non-attendance by governors. Quite a hot potato there that will be discussed this entire week. Other highlights on this front page of Daily Nation. At the very top scroll, study. So parents are employing 40% of teachers in schools. Is on page 6. Matters party politics. Voters will punish you. Those are not my words. Those are words of Azimio Chief Raila Odinga telling ODM rebels in Nyanza. On the right, a gentleman who has cracked the ribs of Africans and the entire world for decades, Mr. Ibu. So for the better part of the past 3 decades of Nigerian Nollywood films, many actors have come and gone. Some became slick celebrities, while others just disappeared. But Mr. Ibu retained his fort. And just below it, what we were talking about earlier, the mess at Haiti, state-defying Haiti mission court order charges Kalonzo. The Wiper leader accuses the government of defying court orders and entering into an agreement to send police on a peacekeeping mission to the troubled nation. I mean, earlier on we were talking about troubled, but then whatever is happening in Haiti right now, Fred, is just chaos.
Oh yeah, pure chaos.
Pure chaos. On the bottom scroll of this paper, 2 more highlights. So Kenya fights 288 billion Kenyan shillings claim for railway deal in UK court. So a bit of a context on this. So the Rift Valley Railways at Viara has been sued for possible breach of contract by two companies. NADCO see the taxpayer part with 288.4 billion in fines. So more is on page 10 of that. And the man pictured there, Benson Kipruto, crossing the finish line to win the men's race in the Tokyo Marathon yesterday. And they say Kipruto led a podium sweep for Kenya with Timothy Kiplagat and Vincent Kipkeboi finishing second and third. That is more is on page, on the back page. More highlights on the back page. Matters Tergat reads riot act to KVF as Kenya risks losing FIVB's technical support. That in a nutshell is the Daily Nation for you. Tusonge mbele.
Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Bonge la Muungano ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Wanasema urafiki mpya wa Ruto, Raila na Mudavadi wafufua kumbukumbu za muungano wa Pentagon wa mwaka 2007. Sasa wanasema Oparanya anasema japo hakuna mpango ya kubuni muungano mpya wa siasa, kuna uwezekano kinara wake asiingie katika uchaguzi wa mwaka 2027 na Azimio la Umoja. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Lakini kuna picha pale ya Waziri Musalia Mudavadi, Rais William Ruto na Raila Odinga. Bonge la Muungano.
Bonge la Muungano.
Masuala ya siasa pale. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Trump karibu kutoa tiketi. Rais wa zamani yuko pazuri kushinda nafasi ya kuwania urais wa Amerika dhidi ya Biden baada ya mchujo. Masuala ya spoti. Kipruto amshinda Kipchoge. Avunja rekodi ya Tokyo Marathon, huku ingine Eliud akimaliza katika nafasi ya 10. Kwingineko, pensheni ya wateleza wastaafu. Pale juu masuala zaidi, Kalonzo amlima Ruto akashifu hatua yake ya kuweka makubaliano ya kutuma polisi 1000 nchini Haiti. Waziri mkuu wa Haiti alikuwa hapa wiki iliyopita na wakatia sahihi kwenye makubaliano. Kwenye spoti, Arsenal sasa waendea Sheffield United. Gunners wana fursa ya kuzidisha kasi yao ya kuwania kilele cha EPL. Na hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo hii leo.
All right, let's talk money matters now on the Business Daily. Treasury plans tax review to caution low-income earners, and they say 42% of salaried workers earn less than 50,000 Kenyan shillings a month, and workers earning 32,334 Kenyan shillings to 500,000 pay 30% pay as you earn. On the bottom strip, matters investment. They say top US investor sells 600 million Kenyan shillings Safaricom shares in dividend protest. On the ticker, Kenyan chief executives less optimistic about 2024 growth. That is what matters economy. In matters companies, the National Land Commission revokes letter allocating 3 billion Kenyan shillings KICC land. And finally, on the ticker, new warning over Kenya's high bank default rates. That's the Business Daily. From BD to PD?
To PD.
Yes.
Long wait for justice by families. That's a big headline on the front page of the People Daily today. Matters litigation and corridors of justice. Relatives of slain Rongo University student, former lawmakers and peasants look at courts to conclude cases that were filed decades ago. And they're talking about over 520,000 cases that have been in the courts for years with no end in sight. That's a big headline, and it's extensively covered on pages 4 and 5 of the People Daily. You can actually tell that today there's no one theme across the newspapers. Each daily has gone with its own news. Other stories on the front page of the People Daily. Auditor queries 5 billion shilling insurance for police and prisons. Elsewhere, trimming the fat and dealing with obesity. As the world marks World Obesity Day, medics have raised the alarm of a growing problem of overweight Kenyans. And there was a lot of discussion on Twitter about the president's economic advisor. David D. And there was a lot of bullying as well.
Oh, yes.
Body shaming that we do not encourage by any standards. But yes, the discussion about weight matters.
Oh, yes.
Actually, a very weighty discussion, if I may say that.
And actually, a reminder to our audience as well, around 11 a.m., Josh and Sarah will be having this conversation.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
It is a conversation to be had. Also on the front page of the People Daily, we have a photo of our new marathon winner, Benson Kipruto, who won the Tokyo Marathon over the weekend at the time of 2 hours, 2 minutes, 16 seconds. And that's the People Daily.
Right. Trying to get the star. If you can have it beamed, France, right there you have it. The Go With Matters, tough times for school heads in proposed laws. And they say it will be illegal to restrict parents to specific vendors for purchase of school items. The lowdown is on pages 4 and 5. But they also say that principals barred from sending home fee defaulters. Interesting. And that famous photo of Benson Kipruto winning the Tokyo Marathon as Eliud Kipchoge finishes 10th. The highlights are on the left. Matters devolution, big clash looms in Senate over Kisii Deputy Governor ouster. And picture there, Robert Monda. Higher from that, air pollution killing 19,000 Kenyans yearly. And they say so Kenyans will be required to install more monitors to check the quality of air, which is fast deteriorating in urban areas. This is one of the key agreements Kenya and other countries made at the UN Environment Assembly, the 6th edition of it, which ended on Friday. And interesting, an op-ed, an opinion editorial by Simon Mwangi there, that said journalists should guard the mental health.
They really should.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Some tough times we're living in. Finally, on the top strip, the National Land Commission resigns its plan on disputed KSCC land, citing lawmakers' probe. More is on page 7, and those are the highlights for you on the Star.
All right, and that's our cue to go into regional matters, and we start off with the East African, and they're still paying tribute to the late president of Tanzania, Ali Hassan Mwinyi, the second president of Tanzania. There's a very big, huge image of Bwana Ali Hassan Mwinyi. This is the East African. They say, farewell Mzee Ruhusa Ali Hassan Mwinyi, the former Tanzanian president, pushed EAC rebirth, spearheaded political and economic reforms, and killed Nyerere's ujamaa. That's a big discussion on the front page of the East African. Other stories given that have found some space on the front page of the East African. Two more. The Museveni-Ruto handshake, they're still talking about it. And Kenya's plan to woo Addis into Lamu. Those are the only stories that have found space on the front page of the East African today. So now we can cross the border officially. Oh yes, we take that bus to Kampala and see what our brothers and sisters from Uganda are saying. And the Good Matters Parliament, interestingly, they say questions linger over Parliament spending. So number one, Parliament says documents on PADM, forgeries. Parliamentary Commission architect speaks out on how payout could impact Mpuga political fortunes, and the former LOPs condemn so-called service award. So this is the biggest news in Uganda because it has been given about 5 pages and, of coverage on the same. And they also give you, so what 1.7 billion Ugandan cash shillings paid to 5 legislators could do. So they reflect on matters like girl child security, healthcare, roads, education, as well as agriculture. And that is the big news in Uganda. The highlights on the top strip: government resumes students' loan program, matters healthy living, lunchbox tips on how parents can prepare healthy foods, and matters weather. Expect heavy rain this month, experts warn. And I believe this also cuts across the East African. From Daily Monitor to New Vision. Oh yes, we stay in Kampala, take a look at the New Vision. NUP members mobilize for Muhoozi's PLU. Matters politics. General Muhoozi's visitors reconciled rivalry in politicians. And it's interesting that President Museveni's son is getting more and more involved in the country's politics and party matters. Then there's an image there of a fisherman who lost his arm in a crocodile attack, but at least he survived. And he's pictured there, recuperating in hospital. Elsewhere, Museveni wealth creation message changes lives. More highlights: Ochola expected to hand over office today, matters police, and 5 arrested of Egyptian murder. And that is a front page of the New Vision. Tumalizane na Uganda, tuelekee kwingine.
From Kampala, let's go to Kigali and take a look at the New Times. So inside Rwanda's biosafety law set to regulate GMOs, matters GMOs still making it big news in this country. But finally, I found the word political on the front page of Rwanda. It has been months and months of searching, but finally. So they said 2024 polls, what are political parties up to? But they're not really giving a mention, so the second page of it, they're not really giving a mention of different, different politicians, but they're just giving you a bit of it. So right now, as a forum, we are training various parties and institutions. We've trained women from various political parties, encouraging them to participate in these elections in various ways, including vying for leadership posts. So these particular elections will be held in May 13th to the 30th. I'm just trying to get the specific dates, but between May to July, we'll be getting more on that of the elections in Rwanda. That is the New Times for you.
Right, tuvuke boda tuende kule Bongo, tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Kwenye jarida hili la Mwananchi, masuala ya siasa, uchaguzi, Othman duni hapatoshi ACT. Wafunguka sababu ya kuwania wenyekiti, madai ya kuhujumiana, waeleza sababu za mvutano kuwa mkali, huku wafuasi wakizua sintofahamu kuvaana kwenye mdahalo leo. And sometimes you read the front page and you know clearly we are not in Kenya. Yeah. Wasia wa hayati Rais Mwinyi kwa familia yake ni habari nyingine ambayo imepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi. Hayati Rais Mwinyi alizikwa siku ya Jumamosi. Kwingineko, asimulia alivyojifungua barabarani. Kule Dar es Salaam, mama fulani alijifungua barabarani, na habari hiyo iko kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi. Nafikiria sasa tuende tuangazie gazeti lingine.
Gazeti la Mwananchi, the Citizen. And they say why Tanzania is opposed to fishing subsidy removal. So the government has explained why Tanzania has joined other developing nations at the recent World Trade Organization conference in rejecting a proposed agreement which sought to ban countries from providing fishing subsidies on the grounds that they fuel excessive fishing. And also in a nutshell, ESC, US set to strengthen trade and investment ties. And draw lessons from NHIF's disagreement with private hospitals. That's Tanzania's NHIF. And that is according to the experts advising the government to draw lessons from that TIF, from NHIF disagreement with the private hospitals. And that in a nutshell is the Citizen. Cue to ingia kwenye caricature this morning. Tuingie the cartoons.
Turudi tuangazie masuala ya karakacha kwenye ukurasa wa
13 on Daily Nation
and 12 of the Standard. On the Standard, there's a chicken there, and someone looks ready to slaughter this chicken. Matters education, yes. And the chicken is degrees, universities, diplomas. And this person is using a machete with the acronym PWPER. That's the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, and says just a little trimming of the wings and the bird will be smarter. So matters education reforms, making it to the cartoon on the Standard today. On the Daily Nation, you see it's on page 15.
Page 13. So interestingly, Gams is having a chicken. You guys are having I believe that's a sausage. I don't know what you think.
This one is talking about the new ETIMs, the taxation, some of the taxation measures and revenue collection measures introduced by the government, because this is a farmer. Last week you saw somewhere in Muranga where MPs and farmers chased away KRA people. They were trying to explain how ETIMS is working because there's a new levy for fresh produce.
Yes, yeah.
That's exactly what they're talking about here. That even the little that the brokers and the farmers have to share, ETIMS, or rather the taxman is coming for it as well.
And you're saying me too. Right, Stano has pictured the new LSK boss right there, holding a huge rungu that says LSK boss, and kando yake Kubun Mwananchi, that she says finally rescues come, and this rescues judicial officers who take bribes to offer services. And this huge Jama says a new sheriff in town, the new president-elect of LSK, Faith Thiambo. And that is the caricature for you this morning. And yes, we'll be discussing quite a number of this bits.
We'll be discussing a lot of this and more. Yes, our panelists this morning on State of the Nation, Professor Fred Ogola, an economic and governance expert, Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, and of course Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former agriculture cabinet minister.
Oh, yes.
This will be a very interesting discussion of which you can be part of through our social media on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. But there are other very interesting plans you have for us, Stanley, later.
Oh, yes. I'm being reminded also in the State of the Nation, former cabinet minister, Pogisi, will also be joining us.
All right.
Oh, yes.
Interesting.
Oh, yes. Later on, around 8:30, we'll be discussing matters, complications of abortion. And we'll be getting to look at how the numbers are looking like and, well, the tips and tricks and even what the Constitution says. And later on, we'll get to look at improving emergency services, what you really need to know about all that. Dennis Mataro, Emergency Services Manager at St. John Ambulance, will be joining us for that conversation. Our socials are @047, at TV47KE on Facebook, at TV47 News on X. Mine are Ringita _
at Fred Ndimuli on X as well.
Oh, yes.
Time now for a break. We'll be back with a lot more. You're watching Morning Cafe.
right, we'll come back. A quick look at the top highlights and the top stories making headlines. So the residents of Garsen in Tana River County Sunday protested over the poor healthcare situation at the Garsen Hospital. According to residents, the lack of clean water and medicine at the hospital, inadequate staff, healthcare workers, or other health workers have all contributed to the deplorable state of health in the area and even cost cost of life. And even area women have also complained over poor maternity services and the lack of ambulances to transport them to the hospital during emergencies, a reality that has caused many to birth their children without the required health care. The angry residents are now pushing county leaders to take responsibility and improve health care at the hospital.
Kuja hapa asubuhi kiwa nimemleta kijana wangu amepata ajali ya pikipiki, na kutoka tulipokuja hapa hospitalini kuanzia saa 1 hatujapata kuona madaktari, kijana bado hajahudumiwa. Yani kuna shida mpaka sasa, kijana bado hajasaidika. Kwa hivyo hili ni jambo ambalo linatukera sisi kama wakaaji wa hapa, ukiangalia kwamba hii ni hospitali kubwa ambayo imebeba sehemu kubwa ya hii county. Lakini mpaka sasa tunaona ya kwamba ukosefu wa madawa, ukosefu wa madaktari, hili tatizo limekuwa ni sugu.
Sisi wamama wa Tana River, sisi kuzaa kwetu huwa tunajificha kando na hospitali. Tukienda hospitali tujifiche na daktari wodini, lakini kuzaa mbele ya hadhira ni ya watoto wetu ndani ya katikati ya Garsen, maana pale hospitali pale mlangoni ni kama katikati, maana kila mtu anaingia. Kisha vijana wetu wanamuona mama akijifungua pale, waume wetu wanamuona mama akijifungua pale. Hii kitu imetutia uchungu.
Meanwhile, Benson Kipruto has won the Tokyo Marathon, clocking 2 hours, 2 minutes and 16 seconds, breaking the former world record holder Eliud Kipchoge's course mark in Tokyo. So Kipruto led 39 seconds ahead of Timothy Kiplangat, who emerged second in position, while Vincent Kipkemoi took the 3rd place. Meanwhile, Kipchoge took the 10th place in the race, marking his 4th defeat in his marathon career. Meanwhile, Ethiopia's Sutume Asefa Kebede clocked 2 hours, 15 minutes and 55 seconds in the women's race, taking lead against Kenya's defending champion, Rosemary Wanjiru.
Congratulations, Benson Kipruto! Go, 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 Benson! 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 Go, go! Benson! 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 Finish it! Congratulations, Benson Kipruto!
Right, back to Kenya, and President William Ruto has once again strongly defended his controversial housing levy, calling it a mortgage for hustlers, as he appealed to Kenyans to support the housing levy, as Chichi Josephine now tells us.
Even after the court ruled in November that the levy was unconstitutional, President William Ruto and his allies have time and time again defended its merits and appealed to Kenyans to support the housing levy, and the rallying cry shows no signs of abating.
Wengi wananiuliza saa zingine, wewe unatusumbua sana na mambo ya housing. Wananiuliza, kwani nani alikuambia tunahitaji manyumba? Nataka niwapeleke hapo kwa Mathayo 25. Neno la Mungu linasema hatukukuwa na makao na haukutusaidia. Mimi sitaki kusimama mbele ya Mungu niulizwe.
The president made the remarks on Sunday during the Salvation Army centenary celebrations at the Ulinzi complex, where he affirmed that the housing levy aims at giving low-income earners a chance to own homes.
Na nyinyi pia mulio na nafasi, tuko na ndugu zetu wengi wanaishi katika vitongoji duni, mahali kunaitwa slums. Na ni jukumu letu, wewe ulio na ajira, wewe ulio na biashara, wewe ulio na uwezo, tuweze kuchangia katika ile levy ambayo itatusaidia Wakenya ambao hawana makao wapate makao.
At the same time, President William Ruto urged Kenyans with arable land and space to undertake agricultural initiatives and help the country achieve its food security goal.
Kuna wale hata katika ukumbi huu muko na nafasi, muko na shamba, muko na uwezo wa kuzalisha chakula katika taifa letu la Kenya. Mimi nawauliza nyote tupande chakula katika taifa letu la Kenya tuweze kuondoa njaa.
Ruto, however, affirmed that his government has plans to increase productivity by providing adequate and affordable seeds and fertilizer.
Wakenya wote tumefanya mpango kama serikali, tuko na mbegu, tuko na mbolea na tayari tuko na mpango ya kutosha tuweze kuondoa njaa na tuweze kusimama mbele ya Mungu kwamba tulifanya jambo ndio wengine wapate chakula wasilale njaa.
Chichi, Josephine TV 47.
And as Azimio leaders have vowed to seek court orders to stop the Haiti deployment of 1,000 police officers to bring sanity in the troubled Caribbean nation, urging President William Ruto to follow law and order if the deployment is in good faith. Speaking in Embu County, the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, the Azimio Brigade, have insisted that the Kenya Kwanza regime is in a mission to capture the judiciary, wondering how it is important to deploy police officers in Haiti, whereas as the country, especially Rift Valley Kenyans, are facing insecurity culminated by cattle rustling. Of these particular updates. Now cross over to Friday Ndiboli with a panelist to discuss more on these stories.
All right, thank you so much, Stanley. Today on State of the Nation, we have a very powerful panel, as we have 4 gentlemen on this panel. Philip Kisia, on my immediate right. Philip Kisia, former town clerk, Nairobi. Next to Bwana Kisia is Kipruto Rapkirwa, former agriculture cabinet minister. Then Professor Fred Ogola, economic and governance expert. And Samuel Pogisio, former cabinet minister for ICT. Gentlemen, good morning. Karibuni sana.
Good morning.
A lot to talk about today, but I'd like to start off with something that's making headlines globally, and because it's linked to what we're doing in Kenya as well. On Friday last week, the Prime Minister of Haiti was in Kenya and signed an agreement for the deployment of Kenyan police officers to that country. But as we speak, yesterday, a gang invaded, I think, the biggest prison in Port-au-Prince, that's the capital city of Haiti, and 4,000 inmates are said to have escaped from that prison. The debate online, especially on X, is whether we should still be deploying our police to Haiti. Of course, the need is clear and they really need help. But we have our own security issues locally. So let's start from that position, Bwana Kisia. What really is wrong with us sending people or our police officers to Haiti? The need is clear. They do need.
Fred, there's everything wrong in sending officers to Haiti. And right from the Constitution, because this government of William Ruto, and you know William is my friend, I've said this before, but the problem with Ruto is that he has this Kimenyi approach to everything. He knows everything. You can't tell him. The courts pronounced this thing unconstitutional. They were referring to Section 107 and 108, 109 of the National Police Service Act, which allows reciprocal arrangement. But there's something underlined. It says that when you're signing that reciprocal arrangement, you must sign with a government that is recognized. The government of Henry is not recognized by the people of Haiti. They don't recognize it. It's an illegitimate government. Then the courts again pronounced itself on the article the Kenya Kwanza government was relying on to deploy our officers to Haiti. This is Article 270, subsection 8, where the National Security Council met and decided that they're deploying officers out of our boundaries. Again, the court said the National Security Council has no mandate. So constitutionally, they are out of tune. Then let us now get back to the police service, National Police Service. They are ill-equipped, they are ill-trained. They are only trained to deal with maandamano in Kenya. That's what they are known for. They have never been involved in a peace mission. The people who have been involved in peace missions are, the Kenya Defense Forces. Our fellows here, completely not trained for such a mission. And then to make it worse, Fred, we have our own challenges here in Kenya, northeastern, they are bandits. How can you go and put off fire in a neighbor's house when yours is burning? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is stupidity of the highest level.
Bonakiro, what's your take on this?
Well, it's worrying because in Haiti there is no peace to keep. And therefore, what are you going to keep there? Because it is chaotic. In fact, if you go to the streets, there are more guns than per capita gun holding, even in America itself, because the thugs have taken over the streets. And it worries me every day that why do we expose our young boys and girls to a situation that it's not tenable. It would have been useful if the president or one of his delegates were to go to Haiti and have some close eyewitness so that we don't take our people knowing they are going to be butchered and we accept that it's okay just because we've gotten 14 billion shillings. Mm-hmm. That is not money worth the blood of Kenyans. Yeah. My take is, yes, we may need to assist Haiti or any other country for that matter, but we must check the condition. There is what they call scanning the environment. Mm-hmm. So that you scan the environment before you take any action when it comes to situations of military action. So it is unfortunate, and I do hope the president will use his wisdom to arrive at a decision that is in consonant with the safety of our Kenyans.
But by signing that agreement, it's as good as done. The president has already made a commitment, and he may feel that he was simply remedying some of the issues that the courts raised on having a reciprocal agreement. That is what they were doing. So it's more or less done. Do you agree with the reluctance, generally, at least 50% of this panel are reluctant to pursue this action? Do you agree with them?
Well, I do agree. I do agree. In fact, if I was the president or his advisor, I would really desist from advising him to the affirmative. I would tell him, this is a no-go zone area because you are taking Kenyans knowing that you are taking them to be butchered in Haiti. And we really don't wish, and we do not like premonition or making statements that we are predicting a disaster, but that is the truth.
Okay.
Why doesn't America even think of it itself? Why are they talking of small countries like Guinea, us, and a few other places where they know people are thirsting for money? Okay. Otherwise, it is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. There's no money, as I've said, there's no money that can be equated to the blood of Kenyans. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Professor Ogola, do you think it's all about the money? That this decision is purely informed by the money coming our way?
Yeah, you know that we have a president who is more of a businessman than head of state. In fact, I'm so concerned about that. Actually, I was issuing a statement at Bunga la Wananchi on Saturday, and that was my very statement, that it is all about the money, and the president does not care about anybody. And my concern is that the president has received enough advice since he got into office. And my concern is that the president is completely unadvisable. The president has intelligence. The president has got a legal advisor. Attorney General position sometimes is different from what he does. Whom is he going to listen to? In fact, for me, I want to move more to action. What should Kenyans do rather than whether Ruto is making the right decision or not? Because we know that the point is that since the president took office, it has been wrong decision after wrong decision, and he says he is unstoppable. Fred, even signing that agreement with an illegitimate government, with something which has been declared unconstitutional, does not cure it. When someone is ill and you give the wrong medication, just because you are giving a wrong medication does not cure it. Because according to me, and Kenyans should go and find themselves that, are we a sovereign state? Being a sovereign state, sovereignty belongs to the people. If you want to ask Kenyans, is there any public participation in the decision even to sign those agreements? So the fact that the sovereignty belongs to Kenyans, and Kenyans are in disagreement, because if you go to social media, even X is showing clearly that the president's decision is only his own decision. So why is it so important to him? It's about the money he's to make with that Haitian prime minister. So as far as I'm concerned, that decision is wrong. It cannot be cured by making an illegitimate signature. Those are just signatures. Okay. The law is clear on what needs to be done about this matter of deployment of police. Okay. And if the president is partisan to the constitution which he upheld, he swore to uphold, that's what we should judge him. We should never judge him about whether Haiti is an issue or not. We should say, are you guarding the constitution of Kenya? And according to me, enough is enough with the president. We should go and review that Article 1 of the Constitution, and Kenyans need to call back directly, because now we are being told members of parliament should do it. They cannot do it. Members of parliament were bought long time ago. Okay. So the secondary constituency, which is MPs, who should be able to act in this matter, cannot act. Judiciary has pronounced itself. Parliament should act, they cannot do. Parliament could have impeached the president. Now the citizens need to be given power to recall this government, because this government will make all the wrong decisions until the end.
Bwana Pogisio, the biggest concern, and what many people have pointed out, is that we have our own security situation in Kenya within the borders that we are not able to contain, especially the bandit attacks in parts of northern Kenya. Do you feel that the president is actually ignoring some of these things by insisting on sending police to Haiti?
Fred, the horse has bolted in this matter. The president has made his his mark in the UN and in the US. And those are the people that he has managed to get to support this particular thing. Kenyan police, we have no history of Kenyan police keeping peace anywhere. At least they could demonstrate to us that now they have trained them well enough to do this. Just last week, is it a week ago? The doctors were demonstrating peacefully. See how we handled it. So you go doing that in Haiti, you try that in Haiti. Go throw canisters of tear gas to people, and you see what can happen. I mean, we would be endangering our people. So the truth is, as has been articulated by my colleagues, that most Kenyans, if they were asked, and by the way, there has been no public participation in this matter, but most Kenyans, if they were asked, they would say, don't endanger our sons. But then there is a catch-22 in this matter. There is money involved. And the soldiers of this country, the police will be willing to go there. Not because they don't know about the dangers, but they see the money. And there is an opportunity to make money. So we have to be able to say, are we sending our children to that place just for the money? Or are we sending them to actually do a peace thing, which does not exist in Haiti? And so, I mean, it's all about the president. It's about the president being praised in the UN, being given an opportunity to visit the US. All those kind of things are because you have agreed that this is what I'm going to do. So we wish him well and wish the country well, but the horse has bolted. The way I see it now.
If it doesn't go the way he expects, if something were to happen to any of these officers, then who takes the blame? Should it be straight? It's a president, you send them, because the courts have already declared what they've declared. Parliament has not handled or taken cognizance of this matter.
What we wait now is for us to make our positions known. The opposition must make their position known, It's not going to change the mind of this president, for example. It's not going to change. It's going to go through with it. So let's make our positions known. Let's be strong in saying this is not right. But then the blame goes to the right person. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, there should have been more than just a signature on that thing. You should have been saying, show us that we are ready in Haiti. Do we have a legitimacy in your government?
Because I think we have an issue when it comes to blame game in Kenya. We do not really know where to point the fingers. Parliament has more or less abrogated on its role, and no one is blaming them now, and they feel they are very comfortable with it. You look at the actions of members of Parliament, and they feel like everything is as good as it should be. But when it comes to blame, are we clear that we know that if something goes wrong, we know who to blame?
You know, Fred, you can't say that we are not clear. We are clear as Kenyans, and we've spoken. The problem is that we have been speaking to a stone. We have been speaking to somebody who has refused to listen. Okay? So speaking, we're speaking every day. I think, like Prof has said, time for action is now. What I would want to say, Fred, because the president has been advised, the courts have pronounced themselves, we are dealing with a parliament that has been castrated, so forget about this parliament. They will not give us any solutions. They are already in bed. Almost 80% of them, or 70% are in bed with the president. We cannot no longer rely on them. Because President William Ruto has been advised, and Kenyans have spoken, and he has decided to go against the wishes of Kenyans. I mean, touch wood. If we lose a single Kenyan in that mission, if we lose a single Kenyan, because he is sending Kenyans against our wishes, he should also be ready to face the similar situation. Okay. He must also now say, okay, not just about taking responsibility, because he's sending children, other people's children, on a very dangerous mission. Mm-hmm. And my friend Kirwa here has said, you normally scan the environment to find out. I'm sure this information has been given to him. If it has not been given to him, he has read, and he can see. But because of the greed of $200 million that have been given by the American government, that is what William is seeing. So if a Kenyan dies, I mean, you should also be ready to face a similar situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. And I think time for action is now.
But Bonakiro, we see more and more the president insisting on things that he has made a decision on. Mm-hmm. And he comes out in public and says, it will happen. Whether or not the courts have said this, it will happen. Whether or not there's criticism, I will still proceed. What do you say to that kind of leadership?
Yeah, you know, I usually sympathize with him because I think he's somebody in a hurry. And I do appreciate his hurry because he's not actually been able to be inculcated into ways of operations of government. But the challenge...
He has been in government for so long.
You know, being for so long is just repeating the same thing. I know him. I know him sufficiently because he was minister before me for 3 months. Then when he came back, he became minister when I left, in the same ministry I was. And he tried to reverse some of the decisions I had taken, only to be told by a court of law, you just don't move regulations without effective participation by certain stakeholders, including Sugar Board. That was annulled by a court of law. So he's a man who wants to change everything without really serious rationale. Because at times they say, if something is working, you don't have to fix it because it's already in operation. Why I was saying, and you've raised the fundamental issue, who is to blame? Is the CEO. You know, Kenyans donated power to him under the Constitution, Article 1, and therefore when anything goes wrong about Kenya, it is he, because that mandate is supposed to be utilized in a way that it reflects the aspirations of the people of this country, and therefore anything at variance with that particular position is something that he earns a lot of blame. And that's why I was saying he should visit. You know, him visiting will be useful because he may not be able to land at the airport.
Okay.
Thugs have taken over the streets of Haiti.
That's the situation in Haiti. The gangs have overrun a prison in Port-au-Prince, and according to international media, I'm looking at Al Jazeera, BBC, and others, they're reporting that about 4,000 inmates are on the loose. Yeah. That's in Haiti. Time for us to take a break now. We'll be back to look at a lot more headlines, including the one on the Standard. It is a special report, but they're talking about dead economies for a country that's already in dire straits. What are we doing wrong when you talk about some of these industries that are lying idle across the counties? You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. Before we continue with the discussion in studio, let's go straight to Naivasha, where my colleague Willie Dennis Njiru is on standby to sample some of the views of the residents of Naivasha and Nakuru County on some of these things we are discussing here on State of the Nation. Willie, a very good morning to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, my colleague Ndimuli, in our studios in Nairobi. As you can see behind me is just very delighted sources here ready to chip into the discussion that you're having there in our studios. And to take it off is on matters security, and that is the deployment of our police officers to Haiti. And we have a myriad of diverse views from these locals here. And without taking much time, I have my first source here. Nieleze jina lako na unieleze swala hili zima la ikiwa askari wa hapa nchini waelekee katika nchi ya Haiti kuangalia swala la usalama.
My name is Peter Njoroge, and I believe that as Kenyans, we are a family together with the international communities. And if our brother country like Haiti is facing challenges, we are obliged to support them in one way or the other. And in this case, if it was Kenya in problem, we could have asked for international support. So if the leadership in Haiti has requested for support from a friend or from a neighbor country like us, we have the responsibility to respond and to do what we can. So our police officers are well equipped and are well trained, and we personally believe that they will contribute positively to the support system in Haiti. If the police officers in Haiti have been overwhelmed by the gangs, what they need is more forces, and we should be willing. And so at my personal level, I believe that our officers are ready and they're equipped, and we should not be afraid because they are going there. We as a country, we are known for peacekeeping in Africa and many other countries. Our military has gone to many countries and they have come back with a lot of success. So this exposure to go in Haiti, a dangerous country, is also going to prepare our officers for future eventualities. And so, as much as this is not a politically correct opinion, but I believe it is one of my personal opinion that we should undertake it for our preparedness in the future.
Thank you very much for your valid opinion. Let's hear this gentleman before we take it back to Ndimuli. Your name, please, and what you have to say about this issue about security.
My name is Ian Jacob. And my issue concerning that is that when we have our police, they are well trained, but in this issue of going there is a matter of risking. So what we'll urge, that's a matter of taking time and discussion, and that is it.
On international peacekeeping, you have always seen the military deployed in foreign countries, but now we are having just regular police doing this. Is it okay?
Yeah, concerning to that, it's okay because in all matters of police, all of them are well trained. So I think in that case, I think it's okay.
Sasa, before I lock this man outside, ndugu, sekunde chache tunarudi Nairobi. Maswala haya, polisi wetu waende Haiti ama wakae hapa. Tumeangalia kwamba siku za nyuma ni wanajeshi wanatumwa nje, lakini sasa tunaona ni polisi wanaenda nje kuweka usalama.
Kwa majina yangu naitwa David Njoroge. Kwa maoni yangu naonelea kwamba askari wetu wasitumwe nchi ya Haiti. Juu ile nchi ni nchi ambayo haina amani, tena wameelemea serikali ya kwao. Kwa hivyo hata kulingana na mafunzo ya huku, askari wako chini sana kuliko wanajeshi. Ilikuwa wastahili watume wanajeshi. Kwa hivyo naonelea kwa maoni yangu hawastahili kutumwa nchi ya Haiti. Ni nchi ambayo haina amani na ni nchi ambayo tunaweza sema ni dangerous hata kwa ulimwengu. Ni machache.
Sasa nashukuru sana kwa muda wako. Muda hauko pamoja na sisi. Fred, you had it there from the locals here in Naivasha who are giving diverse opinions there, the yes and the no, always giving their side of the story, and that is it from me here, culminating to the discussion in our studios. I take it back to you in our studios in Nairobi.
Thank you so much, Willie Dennis Njiru, coming to us live from Naivasha town. And the opinions are varied and diverse as they come. I'm still in studio with Philip Kisia, Kipruto Rapkirwa, Professor Fred Ogola, and Samuel Pugisio. And we now want to move on to another discussion that's featuring on the front page of The Standard. And they talk about tales of industries that have previously thrived, but now, and have been, or served as lifelines for Kenyans. However, many of these have over the years collapsed, and it would appear that no single administration has figured out to attract new major investors while retaining the old players. And this story is on page 2. They talk about the various sectors, mostly in agriculture, the cotton industry, pyrethrum industry, and what has happened over time, sugar industry as well. And they say the manufacturing sector's contribution to Kenya's GDP, which is a sum of goods and services produced in the country, has slid from 11.8% in 2011 to 7.8% in 2022. At a time when we're talking about sending more people abroad to go work there, what are we doing to our manufacturing industry? This is not just a problem for this administration. This has happened for quite a while now. Bwana Ogola, let's start with you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, Fred. Being an economist, the main reason why manufacturing has slowed down is mostly the fact that at the moment we have an administration. Let me talk about that at the moment because I don't want to blame previous administration. At the moment we have an administration that I could say William Ruto is anti-nationalist. You know, nationalist means whereby you put national interest in front. If you look at the US, Trump was a nationalist who put everything was about America, make America great again. He looked at how to create jobs in America, rather than Americans working outside America, rather than taking money outside America. So the policies we have currently are not national policies. They are not nationalistic policies. And I think we need a head of state who is more nationalistic than the one we have now. And look at the policy on the issue of ease of doing business. Just look at that that figure. These are economic figures. Do you know that Kenya is only better than Juba in ease of doing business in the whole of Africa? And Juba is the last born in Africa. So how would Kenya have that figure? Then now look at the issue of foreign direct investment, because these factories need financial injection. How will you make it impossible for people to bring money here? The corruption index in Kenya is on the roof. In fact, under William Ruto, corruption has not just become a crisis. It has been institutionalized. You know what we call institutionalized corruption, whereby if you want to do any business, you have to walk with a briefcase somewhere. You tell me how you can do business in Kenya without walking with a briefcase when it is legitimate. Institutionalized means that if a minister wants you to do business with him and you refuse to give him money, nothing happens. And what's happening? Even if you report that minister, nothing happens because there's an institution even to protect them. And it's not like individual, you know, that sometimes can find that, for example, Fred Ogola can be corrupt officer in a department, but if you report him, he's afraid. Tell me if there's any Kenyan politician or the people in government who is afraid of being known that they are corrupt. There is no one. Corruption has not made anybody afraid.
Okay.
So corruption is institutionalized, ease of doing business
is part of the problem.
Is part of the problem. And then lastly, we are focusing more outside rather than focusing on the opportunities Kenya have. And I can tell you, for any success to happen, even for example, agriculture, you need land. 2, you need water. 3, you need labor. Kenya has the 3. What is missing is leadership there. Okay. That's why Mheshimiwa Kirwa, as a leader was a cabinet in agriculture, can tell you that there's only one ingredient missing: leadership. And that's the national.
And we'll come back to Bwana Kirwa, who has actually been at the helm of the agriculture ministry. But Bwana Pugisio, we've seen that even under this current administration, we've seen the exit of some international manufacturing companies. They're even mentioning Procter & Gamble, GlaxoSmithKline, and Bayer. And that, coupled with the already idle resources that we have dotted across the nation, wouldn't it have been better as a way of creating employment to actually focus or attract more investments towards the sugar sector, the cotton industry, the pyrethrum industry, and ensure the jobs remain here?
Fred, let me just say this, that as a president or leader of any organization, many times you have to yield yourself to advice. you must yield yourself to advice. But a situation where you do not know if your security advisor, your economic advisor, or whatever, don't have an impact on it, you're going to have to make mistakes. And the mistakes, as Mheshimiwa Kirwa was saying, if you are rushed to do something, sometimes you leave a lot of things undealt with. Now, we already know that our agricultural industries are dead, right? We know that. Now, then we have these international organizations of businesses that are pulling out. Procter & Gamble and GSK and Bayer, those really are the factories, industries that have made Kenya what they are, grown up and benefited from our agriculture. Some of them from whatever resources we have. And they have been in this country for such a long time. So if we push, and I think the president has in his mind to push for this low-cost housing, fine? So we push for this low-cost housing to be the one that's going to create jobs. And then remove all other jobs which are in the agriculture sector. Remove jobs which are coming from these industries that have gone away. What is the balance there? Are we balancing economically? And I think that's why advice is very important. And I think that it's very clear now that we are losing on the industrialization side. And housing, whatever you do, you put how much money in housing alone, cannot come back and deal with the issues that we've lost already. So I really hope that with good advice, and I don't know when that's going to come, but when it does come, I really hope that we can begin to focus on rebuilding our agricultural industries and rebuilding and attracting more of these people who are more than those who are leaving. And where are they going to? Most likely in the neighborhoods. And when they go to the neighborhood, what happens is our economy goes down vis-a-vis that of our neighbors. And I think that's what we should be protecting.
And some of the issues or taxation and levies introduced by this government could directly to blame for this exit of some major manufacturers. And with their exit, those are thousands of jobs gone as well. Does this government realize, or is the issue of privatization, I know it's a very delicate balance, but has Kenya Kwanza failed completely to strike a balance?
You know, Fred, this government is up to speed because the technocrats running government are still there. They are the ones who were there with Kibaki, they're the ones who are there with our friend Uhuru Kenyatta. So nothing has changed. What has changed is the thinking and leadership at the top. I think the question that we must be asking ourselves is why are industries collapsing? I can tell you, Fred, it is a deliberate move, especially by the current regime, to make sure that all industries collapse. And as Mheshimiwa Pogisha said, other than housing, which is his pet project, he has refused to consult some of us who actually came up with the idea of affordable housing, because that's where he's making money. The thing boils down to a few things. Number one, and everything is deliberate, number one is just bad management. Poor management of the resources that we have, the things that we found here, the industry that we found. So you're just completely mismanaging them. The other thing that I think it was my friend Prof said is corruption. You want an industry to thrive, which is a state corporation, but you are stealing more than investing. What happens? When you're stealing from the corporation, it will, of course, eventually collapse. If the cost of producing items by that particular corporation or that industry is so high, you can't be competitive. Then when you look at direct foreign investment, you know, investors look at predictability. Are they able to predict the operating environment? Here in Kenya, you wake up one morning, there's a policy shift. You wake up the other morning, the man has brought other new taxes. You wake up, so who will come to invest in a destination where you cannot predict? If you look at a small country like Rwanda, very organized. To register a company in Rwanda takes 1 hour. The tax regime is predictable. Everything, there's no corruption. Even Uganda, by the way, if you have an investor who wants to invest in Uganda, getting to the president is I know it's child's play. It is so easy to get hold of Museveni and say, okay, we want to invest X amount of money, and they will facilitate you. But here, as my colleagues have said, what happens? Even before you start doing the business, you must part with billions of shillings. I mean, it's shameful. And I know of some people who have told me they have made an attempt to come and do business here. I have not mentioned his name, but at one of these multi-billionaires from a country in the north, they tried coming here to do business. The amounts of money they were asked as bribe, and they want to set up a cement factory in Kenya. The amount of money, it was so shameful. Millions of shillings in terms of bribe. So I think the move is deliberate so that to make sure that Kenya is just a consumption country where we even import toothpicks. If William Ruto was a serious man, but if by now he's been there for more than a year and a half, should we be importing toothpicks and toothpaste?
Let's be fair
after 1.5 years.
Bonakiro, you've been Minister for Agriculture for a while, and some of this, they've used an image there of KFA, Kenya Farmers Association, on the front page. Some of these went down, not in the last 1 year. Some of these organizations, some of these industries and institutions have been failing over time. When we say that agriculture is still the backbone of this economy, and we see all these industries, very many of them dotted across counties, sugar industry, pyrethrum, textile, cotton, all this failing consistently over decades. Surely we cannot really blame Kenya Kwanza for all this, can we?
Yeah, you know, time is a factor in every investment. And remember, Fred, in 1971, the economy of East Africa was almost at par. Whether you had Kenya shilling, Uganda shilling, or Tanzanian shilling, the money could almost exchange almost at par at the boundaries of the three countries. But fast forward, when I took over in Uganda, and there was a challenge between Amin and Nyerere in Tanzania, the economy started drifting apart. And some people who had their investment in Tanzania, like many of our families, and some of them in Uganda, like some of our families also, found it difficult to come back to Kenya to purchase land, because at the time the economy, the land buying was at the apex. What am I trying to say? If we are not careful, the Kenyan shilling today is equivalent to about 18 Uganda, in any case Tanzania, and perhaps about 26 Uganda. This is something that happened within a short period of time. If we are not careful, the reverse can happen. Why am I saying so? Most of the companies that have been domiciled here in Kenya are now relocating some of their core functions to Tanzania, to Uganda, because it is easier to do business. There is less taxation in those countries. And of course, this house levy has created a momentum that is likely to invite people to get out of the country. The second issue is, of course, the issue of corruption. Here in Kenya, politically, we maneuver industries like Kefe used to do such a nice job until it was almost taken over by government under the formation of what they were calling KGGCU. And that is when importation of fertilizer became a problem. Otherwise, Kefe used to import fertilizer for the farmers. They used to import other products that were not being manufactured here.
I think government intervention
interference. And because they perceived somebody like the late Ruben Jesire was too independent and was too powerful. So that interference destroyed KFA. And up to now, KFA is still on a deadbed. Now, the other challenge is also the issue of research and development. You know, in agriculture sector, unless you improve research and development, seed varieties that you are going to produce will not be able to meet the demands of efficiency. And therefore, you are likely to produce lower in terms of yields. And when the yields are low, then any productivity is also reduced. The other issue is a question of agribusiness. You know, in a country that boasts that it is believes in agriculture or is the backbone of the economy, you must do value addition. And value addition means you must process the products that you are getting from farming. so that you are able to sell to the local market and to the region. And finally, and perhaps the most important thing, is that African trade is yet to be improved. We are still at a lower rate. We need to improve to double or even triple the African trade, because that's the only way you can have comparative advantage between us, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, all the way to Zambia. At times, this region is what we call sugar deficit. It is also grain deficit, because at times when we have BAMBA harvest in Kenya, Tanzania is crying, Uganda is crying. And when Uganda, which it does most of the time, have BAMBA harvest, here we need the grains, because Uganda, their food security is not in terms of maize and potatoes alone. They have a variety of other indigenous crops. So that kind of inter-Africa trade or intra-East Africa trade is something that can boost our industries and improve our economy.
Professor Ogola, Bonaruto made mention of something very interesting: government intervention, government interference in some of these industries. You've always said that perhaps government is not the best at doing business. But a few months back, we were talking about the possibility of privatizing some of these government-owned institutions, most of them which are collapsing. Isn't that therefore the way to go, that probably partly privatizing some of these institutions and attracting private investment into some probably 100% owned industries could be the way out of this? Because as it is right now, they're just shells.
Yeah, Fred, let me tell you that a government is never meant to do business. The work of a government is to create an enabling environment. In fact, governments were founded to be functional. They were never meant to be efficient, and they are never efficient. And that's why the more the government does business, the economy becomes more inefficient. Look at even the procurement process of a government. A government can spend 1 billion shillings to procure a pen, which is around maybe 20 shillings. So inefficiency is because of the government structure. It's very big. So normally, a government needs to pronounce itself in terms of policy. Predictability, like my friend Kisa has said. How do you invest when the policies, fiscal policy, are not conducive? Foreign policies are not conducive. Look, the president has been traveling everywhere, and there's no direct investment. There's no correlation between these foreign trips and foreign direct investment. It means that the fiscal policy is wrong at home. You know, if you have everything wrong at home, it does not matter how you advertise yourself outside, because remember, the businessmen and women who are outside the country have friends in Kenya. For example, when they hear, for example, that Procter & Gamble wants to leave, how many companies abroad that wants to come that knows about Procter & Gamble? And they know Procter & Gamble has succeeded somewhere, so you cannot cheat yourself. In the book that I wrote called Solomonic Economics, I talk about wisdom of fools. Wisdom of fools are people who are trying to look intelligent, but their intelligence actually is the biggest foolishness that we have. So, secondly, privatization has never worked. And I have even published very good articles about it. And I'll give you the example of UK. UK privatized their railway, the water, electricity. Eventually, the privatization will always make the services cheaper for the citizens. It is more expensive to citizens than it was before privatization. Secondly, it has not generated the revenue to the government to the extent it was supposed to do. Because what happens is that now there's ROI for a private company. Monopolies, there are some services which are public good. They are natural monopolies. And for that matter, you should not privatize them. It has worked against any country that has gone the route of privatization. And also just to note, take for example, if you privatize Kenya Power, for example, isn't it, to a private company. Fred, if Kenya Power fails, do you know the government has to go back again to their pocket and put money on Kenya Power if it fails? And it has happened in the US whereby somebody takes a monopoly, it is privatized, they run it, then these guys collude, they collapse it, and because Kenya government cannot say it is Kenya Power which has failed, there will be no power. So you have to put money back. So privatization has never helped any country. And I'll end by saying this. Our governments, so long time, except President Mwai Kibaki, was more on against this IMF and World Bank. Because I call those guys economic hitmen. They have destroyed any country they took control of. So by William Ruto handing over the Kenyan government to IMF and World Bank, and remember, look at the budget statement policy statement by Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. He said he takes this time to thank their development partners for 3 reasons. 1, providing resources. 3, policy direction. And 2, policy direction. And 3, structural adjustment. If IMF and World Bank gives you policy direction, do you want to tell me that World Bank, IMF, US, among other trading partners we compete in the global trade, wants Kenya to manufacture? Do they want you to economically grow? If I'm competing with you, for example, this station called TV47, do they want other stations to become more competitive? So they'll give you the direction that favors them. Okay. When your enemy becomes your advisor, you should know that's the end of you. Okay. For example, yesterday, Man City was playing with United. Maybe the Man City coach advised the Manchester United coach to field a certain team that could not beat them. So this is the same policy we are getting here, that we are getting our competitors being our advisors, and we cannot be competitive, a nation, when we are being advised by a competitor. That's why Michael Porter, who is one person I follow because I'm a strategist, talks about competitiveness of nations. And competitive nations shows that every nation should be self-interested. In Kenya, our interest, we are serving the interests of Haiti, we are serving the interests of World Bank, IMF, we are serving the interests of anybody. And the president is managing our economy like a piggy bag. A piggy bag is whereby you have a bag where you throw anything at it. You go to Haiti, you bring something. You go to Japan, you throw something in it. But without having any structure. Fred, if you are hungry and you eat samosa, you eat chicken, you eat chocolates, you drink busa, you drink changa, you drink whiskey, your stomach will blow out. And that's why the economy is blowing out.
Dead economies, that's a headline on the Standard today, and they talk about many industries that have collapsed, and they're just shells of their former selves. But this has happened over time, and the worst affected are agriculture and manufacturing, and we're now seeing big companies, manufacturing companies, exiting this space. I want us to move to some politics now. And still on the Standard, Matters NADCO report. It is on page 7. They talk about 9 bills that will now anchor the NADCO report into law. Among them is a Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2023, which, if approved by Parliament, will change the structure of government. It seeks to introduce the office of the Leader of Official Opposition and anchor the office of Prime Minister. Of course, the other funds, the Senate Oversight Fund, NGCDF, and the rest. And it further seeks to extend the term of Senate to 7 years from 5. There are other bills, of course, like the IEBC Amendment Bill, but I want us to focus on the Constitution Amendment Bill, especially on structure of government. And I know it has been the main discussion, but the question is, are we ready? Is this what we are able to do now? Are we willing to change the structure of government? Have we given the current structure of government enough time to change? And I don't know, it could be a misplaced question because already the NADCO report is a negotiated document. But is this the right way to go, Bonapugisio?
Fred, first of all, let's look inward to ourselves and say, where do we have the resources to do all these things when we are struggling with just the basics of this country? Are we blind to what is obtaining right now in the country? Is the parliament blind to the fact that we missed the opportunity and spent a lot of money into BBI, which was opposed and destroyed, and then come back later and say we are doing the same BBI through NADCO? I mean, let's look at our situation. I think one of the things that I keep saying is that our biggest expense is a lack of trust. And trust is the confident belief in something or someone. And we basically are going to spend a lot of money because we cannot trust each other. And even on this NADCO, the question of trust comes in. So who's pushing for all these 9 bills? The cost of doing one bill. Who's going to fund it? Number one. Number two, the Constitution of Kenya. You know, anytime you read your own constitution, you know you're going into problems. You know, if your constitution is such that you can actually just keep ripping one page and replacing with another, you're going to have a very tattered constitution, which is not good for the country. Again, it comes to good advice. Where is it going to come from? Who's going to take it? And I'd like to advise that don't make laws for your own expediency for the time you are in power, and forget that the country is bigger than you, and the legacy that this country needs is just not about you. And the current members of parliament, the current members of the executive, whatever, are thinking of this time, making laws and changing the constitution to suit this particular time. Even the whole thing about CDF, whatever fund you're talking about, are you thinking about the future, the need for that in the future? How is it going to look in the future? Take 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What are we dealing with? So that we have to go to the constitution and change constitution. My advice, of course, is if anybody would take it, there's certain things that you don't need to read your constitution about. You don't have to go into and change your constitution. You can do certain things through legislation. You can do certain things that require, let's leave the big things and deal with the things that we can handle. But when the time comes and Kenyans agree to change their constitution, let's hear them. Let's hear them out. Okay. I want to say this for the purposes of our discussion on this one. NADCO is an agreement between parties, and I will not get it past them to disagree again, because every step of making a law is going to yield more.
They already disagree whether or not to subject this.
And that's what's going to take time in Kenya. We're going to spend a lot of time on it. Anyway, I really wish that we could begin to think about the people more than ourselves.
But Akisia, are we missing the point by having this conversation now? Because yes, probably it is right, and at some point we may be able to have this conversation about amending the constitution and changing a few things, but there appears to be more urgent needs that Kenyans are facing. Are we missing the point by having this conversation in Parliament right now?
I think just like my brother Pokisha said, I think the changes we're seeing now being proposed are expedient. They are not for the benefit of this country. Changing of the constitution is not something that you use like serviette paper, you know, clean, throw, and, you know, it's a document that is sacred. It's like a Bible. How many times have we changed the Bible? Look at advanced economies like the United States. When did they last amend their constitution? And it's a working democracy, it's a working economy, it's a superpower. But here we have, because of our own selfishness, our own stupidity, we look at the document and say, okay, fine, how can we get a piece of power? The only way is to amend the constitution that the people of Kenya fought for a very long time. So is it actually urgent? If you ask me, no. Kenya has more urgent things that we should be focusing on, and not the constitution. I am not saying that a constitution should not be changed, because it is not a static document, okay? But is it really the good time to do this? Now, why are people in a hurry to amend this constitution? I think it's to accommodate, to get a piece of that power. So how can we avoid this situation? It's just by making sure we have a government that functions. We have a government that, you know, that takes care of everybody. We have a government that works for everybody. But here in Africa, mainly and mostly in Kenya, once you have a group of people in power, they work for themselves. They don't work for the country. And that's why the problem begins. So if you look at something like this NCDF, NGAF, is it even necessary? Can you find such stupidity in America or in Britain or even in India? You can't find these things because things function. Because once you've been elected as the president of a republic, you are the head of state. You serve everybody. But here you still find people talking about the Kenya Kwanza government instead of talking about the Kenya government, because elections are over. You only use Kenya Kwanza to ascend to power. Now that you're in power, for heaven's sake, serve the nation. Okay. Don't line your pockets.
Bonakirwa, the necessity of having the dialogue at the Bomas of Kenya was key at some point. It was necessary to quell political tensions and the upheaval that was there. We would say we are now past that problem, but we appear to have created another one. Didn't we manage to remedy that situation? That probably we are now beyond the need to go back and have this discussion right now?
Yeah, the Honorable Pogisho put it very well, that lack of trust. We do things just because we find it expedient to do it at that time without necessarily engaging in what is durable for the purposes of this country. I strongly believe, yes, most of the issues raised by the bipartisan talks, now summarized in NADCO report, are very pertinent and they are very useful for purposes of ensuring that we have smooth and effective issues of government in future. But my worry is, did we avoid the pitfalls that BBI found itself in Supreme Court, in the High Court, and eventually, or was it Court of Appeal, and eventually it was thrown out? The challenge is that we may go and make some of the decisions, and once the decisions are made at our own level in Parliament, then the same thing is subjected to another litigation that will throw it out of existence, and that is what is worrying me. I've always had this proposal that let us agree on a raft of changes that we need to have, but what is important is procedure. We subject it to a process or procedure that takes cognizance of the issue that anything that is done in Kenya that changes the basic structure of government must go through referendum, because that is where it belongs. When it goes through referendum, by ensuring that all the changes that we envisage, we put and we freeze them, so that in the next election, as we hold the 2027 elections, we also hold a referendum, so that the product of that referendum will now decide who goes to the opposition as the official leader of opposition and who forms a shadow cabinet. Because we cannot have this system where we have minority, at the same time we have majority, at the same time we want to have official opposition and the shadow cabinet and the leader of opposition. What would be the role of Opiyo Wandayi if there was to be an immediate leader of official opposition today? That is one issue that we need to look at. The second issue is the issue of resources. I strongly believe there is need for distribution of resources from the center to the smallest unit called a ward, or a ward in a number of constituencies, forming about 1,450 throughout the Republic. But when do we have an elected representative called MCA, elected representative called MP, elected representative called women rep or senator? Now almost is oversighting, at the same time is an implementer of projects on the ground. My take would have been ring-fence the money for Cherangani constituency, for example, where I used to represent, ring-fence the money for 7 wards in Cherangani, ring-fence the money for various constituencies throughout the Republic, use the equalization fund to assist the areas which had some disadvantages, but this money must be midwifed through another process, so that if I'm the MP for Cherangani, for example, I don't get involved in allocating CDF, allocating bursary. You become a CEO at the same time. You are supposed to be a people's representative. These are some of the things that we should think through, because it's not about me. It's about the future of this country and how effective we can have these institutions separated.
Okay. Professor Gola, the feeling is that, yes, there's some key conversations that we should be having at this time that are more urgent. Reconstitution of the IEBC. It is much. We've already defined the constitution by having that delimitation of boundaries deadline lapse. So reconstitution of IEBC is probably key. Implementation of the 2/3 gender rule is key, and a few others. But is a problem that we have bundled too much, that we're having too many conversations at once, instead of focusing on probably what we need to remedy now, and the rest can wait?
Yeah, Fred, unfortunately, we cannot have this conversation without putting into context. What's the context of Kenya at the moment? The person who went to the street was Raila Odinga to birth the NADCO report. Now he wants to become chair of AU, and he has become a friend with William Ruto. So was the battle to the street his battle, or it was a Kenyan battle? The only reason why Kenya reigns the street is cost of living, taxes. So I'm sure that NADCO can only be relevant in as much as addressing those issues. If it's not, then actually it's technically wrong, because it was used by Azimio as an excuse to go to the street, and the cost of living will go up. Now, if you look at all 9 bills, my brother Fogisho has said here, it will only increase the cost of running government. One of the worst mistakes the president has made, in fact, let me just tell you, President William Ruto and his administration has not made any single economic genius decision since he got into office. But he has made some political genius decision like Raila's AU job, because that has changed totally the political arena of Kenya. And in that dispensation, let us look for what actually is focused on wananchi. What's their main focus at the moment? If we mix these issues, then we'll go. Then second thing, I'm trying to tell Kenya, let us go to what's called purpose-driven leadership. What is William Ruto's administration's purpose? What does he want to achieve? I don't see it in terms of, for example, food security. I don't see it in terms of economic transformation. Kibaki's economic transformation came and passed. Uhuru tried to further it with some challenges, but he made what he could do. Do you want to tell me what is William Ruto's purpose with all these bills? It is about political, and talk about the issue of a coalescing power. If you look at all these things whereby he wants MPs to answer to him, that's why there's a bill that my brother Kisa says useless, to please MPs. And the problem we're having is that a government should look like the three-legged Maasai stool, whereby there's one, if you look at it, the executive, one is judiciary, the other one is legislature. The problem we have with government is that the other 2 legs of the government have suffered because the main leg is weak. There is no vision in the executive. What they're doing is a lot of aggrandizement, and they have been compromised and in total campaign mode throughout. And the issue was about Kenya Kwanza is how can they get more power, get more money, control more people. But when you get more power, get more money, you take poverty to the people. So according to me, the main challenge we're having here is unfocused government that are committing what I would call the 4 cardinal sins of governance, which once again, lack of prudence. If it's there, you tell me. They have no what is called fortitude to make the right decision. Thirdly, they have not called temperance. Temperance means that how far can you push citizens? You know, you can push Kenyans, but you can push them until they break. So these people don't understand what I'm trying to say. And what is sad here is that I like during the campaign when Azimio and Kenya Kwanza were benchmarking on Singapore. I'm sure you see this benchmark in all the 2 manifestos. Unfortunately, in Singapore, we don't have such kind of bills going to parliament, isn't it? Unfortunately, the level of taxation that is taking place in Kenya is not the level of Singapore. Singapore has the lowest tax regime, lowest government expenditure. So what I'm seeing here as the most important thing, and I want to caution Kenyans, this is the best time to be vigilant. Why am I supposed to be vigilant? We are taking so many amendments to parliament when Raila Odinga seemed to be a friend of William Ruto, which means that the MPs from Azimio and Kenya Kwanza might actually pass these things like lightning. And that is my biggest challenge, because anytime 2 governments come together, let's say opposition and government come together, if they use it to the good of the citizens, works. Uhuru came together with Raila Odinga, but they pushed for BBI, which was a mistake. Okay. Raila came together with Mwai Kibaki, and they pushed for the COC 2010, which for me was a masterstroke. It's the first time. And all these bills will never bring anything to Kenya, because the constitution of Kenya is very clear. Right to water, life to food, all that is clear. Implementing that is not their concern. Their concern is to have other bills to have more power. So my concern is let us be vigilant as a country, because this time when opposition has been weakened by this AU thing, every Kenyan has to be opposition on their own because there's no opposition.
And now the debate between both sides of the House is about whether or not these bills should be subjected to public participation, Bwana Pogisio. Azimio feels that because this is a negotiated agreement, the bills should be worked on as they are without necessarily subjecting them to public participation. But Kenya Kwanza side insists any bill has to follow the same procedure, which will include public participation. Do you feel that we run a risk, if at all we fail, they fail to include public participation in processing these bills?
No, I think everything should be subjected to public participation, in my view. But you know how public participation is done in this country. You put the bill on a newspaper and you say it's been done. I mean, there's no real public participation. Public participation means making it known, putting a notice out there, and that's about it. How do you do public participation in the country? It will take how long? And there's an emergency kind of thing, you know, that people want to get these things out quickly. I don't underestimate the capacity of the members of parliament to pass anything today. I cannot underestimate that. They will be able to do it. But the consequence of it, and you know, Kenyans have checks and balances, and Kenyans are very alive to that. So what Kenyans don't like, they will actually be able to stop it. And of course, our judiciary will probably help in that situation. So my understanding, as you're asking me this question, is, if we want the best for Kenya, why are we putting conditionalities? For example, we are saying you can't pass this unless we anchor CDF in the Constitution. We can't pass this until we anchor the Senate fund in the Constitution. I mean, we're putting roadblocks on things which are very good. And so if these are challenged, for example, and have been challenged before and thrown out, that the whole list of things will have to be at jeopardy. And so let's also be thinking that if you put it forward to people, to public participation, which I think they should do it properly in a manner which reflects a Kenyan contribution, and they should also be ready for Kenyans to reject some of these things. And then they should also be ready to say, okay, if the Kenyans don't like it, can we revise our positions? Yeah. And leave this out, vote this in, and things like that. But you know, the trend here is the threat we have today is the numbers available to vote, like voting machines. They can pass anything. And especially now that it is a compromised document, it will go through. So I just want for Kenyans to be vigilant, and for responsible Kenyans to do what they must do to stop some of these things which are going to derail our constitution to begin with, but going to give us a weaker basis for the next election. And then continue the things, the troubles we have with elections every year. So we must be very, very vigilant. And I think, I know Kenyans are ready to do that.
For MPs, of course, they have the carrot, the funds being introduced. Of course, that is what they're mostly interested in. Do you think the public participation would be a good way to gauge whether the public is really keen on having this kind of conversation in Parliament right now?
Yeah, you see, Fred, one, I think I don't see them being able to avoid public participation, because that is something that is captured very, very neatly in our Constitution of 2010. It's a requirement that anything that will adversely affect the people of Kenya, then people must be consulted. But I know for sure that those in political power, be it in opposition or in government, would not want the public to participate effectively. In fact, I would say, and I would urge my brother Linda Jamii and others, you know, to start coming up with public education. Because as my brother Pogisio have said, you know, Kenyans are hoodwinked. They are told, okay, this document, the Mzee has looked at it, and William maybe has also looked at it. It is okay, it's good to go. So I think we need now, even before we talk about public participation, what are they participating in? They need to be educated, you know, on the content of that document, so that when they are voting on it, so that when they are discussing a matter, they are discussing from a position of knowledge. Right now, I don't think a majority of Kenyans actually know what these characters have sat down and agreed on. Of course, their interests have been taken care of. The CDF thing is inside, sharing of power is inside. Where is Mwananchi in this document? Where? It doesn't focus on the Mwananchi. Okay. It is focusing on, so I don't know whether you'll give me one more minute in closing, but I just want to say this. I'm hoping that President William Ruto can have a change in mind. We don't need those $200 million from the US if we're going to lose the lives of our young people. And if really William is so confident that the operating environment in Haiti is safe, as the commander-in-chief, I would want to see him there, land at the airport. Then I'll know we are safe to go.
Okay. Final comments, Bwana Kirwa.
Well, my final comments is that I think we need to cultivate more of trust and more of longevity in terms of what we intend to do today. Because you see, the current regime may be there for the next 2 or 3 years, or even 8 years, should win the next election. But some of the issues bedeviling our society are still pertinent, even for many years to come. And the earlier we do it, the better it is for our country. And finally, I just want Kenyans to spend more time being humble. You know, at times when I watch stations like in Tanzania, whether it is the funeral of the late Mkapa, the late Magufuli, or the latest of the late
Ali Hassan Mwinyi.
Ali Hassan Mwinyi, you see a lot of humility, and people describe them with the moments they were so humble. And here in Kenya, we describe our leaders that this guy was very strong. He was a fighter, ruthless. Fighter for what? Ruthless. I think we need to change our talk, that humility pays.
Okay. Thank you. Professor?
For me, I would like to say that we should not lose hope, but I want to tell Kenyans to stop focusing on William Ruto and what he's doing, because even it's against the Bible. Because we are very clear that it's clear in the Bible that they say Psalms 121 that where should my help come from? It's in the name of the God who created the heavens and the earth. And if all the time we are worshiping the president, tunaomba rais, tunakuomba rais, tunaomba serikali, we are looking at State House, our help is not there. Because we know very well the president is not going to make any good decision for Kenyans. It is clear from day one to the end. I've told you, house levy, the insurance, the Issue of Finance Act, G2G, every decision William Ruto makes is an economic sin. And we cannot wait for these economic sins to take us to heaven. And William Ruto should listen to this, that all the people advising you, they're not your right advisors. The number of people who are called in the office of the president as advisors are too many. Mm-hmm. The outcome of that advice is not seen in your decisions. You cannot have 1 million advisors and make wrong decisions, while Mwai Kibaki had very few advisors. He made good decisions. Means that they are just there for them to earn money from government, but not to make decisions. So mine is to tell him that hata kuna Kikuyu proverbs nasema the one destined to get lost do not meet a friend. Even if you meet Jesus Christ, Mary and Joseph, and tells you this route is going to hell, hautasikia. But if you are listening to Sudi, you are listening to the people advising you. I see them advising in every barazas, in church rallies and the rest. Those guys are destined to take you to hell. Listen to the critical voices which are on this television here. They're telling you the truth. They love you. We want you to succeed, not tomorrow, but today. And Mr. President, your failure is not your own failure. It's a failure for the whole country. Look at it like that.
Okay, final thoughts?
Yes, let's worry about our GDP, of our character, of our nation, of the people of Kenya. I tell you, if we worry about our pockets, our leadership, whatever it is, I want to remind you that the population today, the common Kenyan today, is a very angry person. The Kenyan today it's become so violent. Look at how people are killing each other. What is triggering all that? It's a simple fact that they cannot provide a meal for their families, that they can no longer argue about money in their houses, they can no longer give direction. I mean, we are breeding a group of people that don't care about lives now. and look at our young people, where they are destined. Let's bring back our economy. Let's think about how to rebuild our economy in this country. I don't know whether it is past us to do agriculture again. I don't know whether we can say that, but let's bring back what people can do to make money. There's no money in the people's pockets. Mm-hmm. But secondly, I worry about our level of trust in this country. The lack of trust. That's why we have to put in more money and put in more money just to protect ourselves from lack of trust, to try and build trust. We cannot do that by putting more money. Let's talk to each other. I see the insecurity in this country as a big threat. I see that education in this country, the lack of education, the way people can buy certificates in this country to get a job. I mean, there's so many things we need to worry about. The main thing is the GDP of our character is very important in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel Pogisio, former Cabinet Minister, ICT, Philip Kisia, former Town Clerk, Nairobi, Professor Fred Ogola, Economic and Governance Expert, and Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister. Our panelists this morning on State of the Nation. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your well-considered opinions on this matter. Yes, time now for a break. Morning Cafe will be back with more.